In France, some bad news on the unemployment front.
Yeah, something it seems like that we're saying all the time over recent months, but it's true that the unemployment in France has hit a new record high in February. There are now 3.34 million people on unemployment benefits in France. Terrible timing, of course, for President Francois Hollande ahead of the second round of local elections coming up this weekend. Florence will have more on that in the newspapers in a couple of minutes. There are now 420,000 more people out of work, though, since the president came to power in May 2012. Delano de Souza has the story.
Surging to a new record high, there are now over 3.34 million job seekers in France, 31,500 more than in January. Under 25s and over 50s are the long-term unemployed. No category was spared the bad news, painting a very bleak picture for those out of work.
We're seeing a rise in every category, which shows the labour market's really deteriorating.
President François Hollande's failure to make a dent in unemployment has seen his popularity plummet. The government has spent at least €2 billion on subsidised job schemes and plans to phase out a payroll tax on companies in exchange for hiring more workers. But such initiatives have so far done little to jumpstart a stagnant economy.
We need to do more and in different ways. Firstly, we need to help our businesses become more competitive, because that's what will ultimately create more jobs.
The policy that's driven this economic plan for the last 2 years is an absolute disaster, and that's exactly what the French public made clear to the president in the first round of the elections.
Tackling unemployment has been a challenge for the Hollande government. The news comes at a critical time for the Socialist Party ahead of this weekend's local elections.
OK, well, we're going to look over to events in Ukraine next. The IMF, Stephen, said to be very close to announcing a bailout deal.
Yeah, we're expecting it maybe even in the next couple of hours. In fact, Kiev negotiating a loan of around $15 billion with the International Monetary Fund. That won't come, though, without huge concessions by the Ukrainian government to reform parts of its economy, among them the subsidy on gas to consumers in Ukraine, a very tricky subject for the Ukrainian administration. The state gas company has already said that it will raise prices by 50% from the 1st of May, with further price rises expected until 2018. We're watching that story closely through the morning to see if we get any more detail.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to some companies news now. And Stephen, I see people playing Candy Crush on their phones, on their tablets, everywhere, on the metro, on the buses. But the game hasn't done very well when it hit the stock markets.
No, they were not Candy Crushing it when they launched on the stock market. Shares in King, the maker of Candy Crush, fell 15% on their first day's trading in New York. These are the images of them launching the company on the stock exchange, accompanied by some very dubious-looking fruit. As you can see, the move wiped more than $1 billion off the value of the company that had been estimated under this IPO, which had said its initial share price of $22.50. The question over King is whether or not it can continue to keep the success of Candy Crush. Its follow-up games haven't proved to be as popular. In fact, one market analyst firm saying that the fall in opening price for King was the biggest fall on the first day's trading for any company since in almost 20 years. Not helping things in general on Wall Street. Tech stocks badly hit, the Nasdaq down over 1% closing.
Very hard, I imagine, to follow up such a big success, isn't it? Let's take a look at what's happening more widely on the markets.
We'll have a look at what's happening in Asia today, where worries over Ukraine had been affecting investor sentiment in the early part of the trading day, but things have bounced back since. The Nikkei in Japan closing up 1%, as you can see. That's despite falls we saw earlier, which was over concerns of the new sales tax increase. That's coming in on April 1st, something we'll be watching very closely as time goes on. But things, for now anyway, looking all in positive territory.
OK, and we're going to look across to the United States for the start of our companies news roundup.
Yes, we'll start with Bank of America, in fact, we're starting with, which has agreed to pay a fine of $9.5 billion over the way it sold mortgages in the run-up to the financial crisis. The settlement with the housing regulator brings the lender's total payout over the scandal to $17 billion. The bank says the payout will reduce its quarterly income by $3.7 billion. Japan's All Nippon Airways is to buy 70 new planes worth more than $16 billion. The airlines has ordered another 40 aircraft from Boeing and 30 from Airbus. ANA is aiming to expand its fleet to 250 planes ahead of the Tokyo Olympics in 2020. And the jeans maker Levi Strauss says it's to cut around 800 jobs over its struggling sales. The positions affected will mainly be in management. Cuts are part of a restructuring plan that's trying to save up to $200 million at the company. Fourth quarter profit fell 68% at Levi as its sales dropped, particularly in Europe.
Okay, we're going to stick with the clothes theme for your last story, Stephen. I have to say, jeans are one of the most traumatic items of clothing to try on in the shops. And a new gadget has been unveiled in London that might help with that problem.
Yeah, a new virtual changing room on show at the Flux Lounge, which is a tech innovation space in London. It's called the Virtual Style Pod and allows people to try on clothes without actually having to physically put them on. Cameras replicate what the clothes will look like on someone, and they can choose what you want to wear. You can see what it looks like when they appear on the person there. They can watch on screen what it's going to look like on them. It has been previously shown off in Abu Dhabi. It also connects to social media, so people can share photos without having to take selfies of themselves using the clothes. It'll appear to many people, but there has been some criticism of it. The fashion editor of GQ among them says that it won't help you choose a size for what clothes you want because you won't be able to test the fit exactly.
See, exactly. I don't think I would trust that. And apart from jeans, there is some fun in trying on the clothes, I think, as well, isn't there?
For some people.
For some people, some of us. Thanks very much, Stephen Carroll there with the business news. We're going to move on to what's grabbing headlines in the French newspapers. Starting